We open on the sprawling metropolis of H City, a world filled with countless jobs but so few real choices, where for some hard work is never enough to truly succeed, because the one thing that truly matters is your background. But a young man still dreams of becoming an adventurer, believing that his own hard work will one day pay off, as he meticulously studies the latest adventure equipment, though his sharp eyes notice the new gear is barely an upgrade at all. When an arrogant young master enters, dismissing the other applicants as trash, impatiently demanding to see the very best items in the store, and as a clerk shows him the gear, our boy is still taking notes nearby, which is when this young master's gaze falls upon him, and the clerk explains he's just a regular who looks but never buys, prompting the man to confront him, questioning his adventure level, as a skill activates, revealing the kid's stats, level 3 with 0 dungeon clears. Making him suspicious, so the man demands to see his notebook, snatching it away while mocking him for pretending to be an adventurer, and these harsh words leave our boy completely stunned. So he tries to leave, but the man grabs his shoulder, demanding to know how he could have possibly leveled up without clearing a single dungeon, when a surge of energy erupts as the kid shoves his hand away, leaving this young master shocked by the sudden defiance. But the kid is in pain, suffering a terrible allergic reaction to magic. And enraged, the young master's arm equipment fully manifests, as he strikes back with a devastating blow to the chest, this powerful hunter looming over him, calling him arrogant trash, while a shop clerk rushes to his side, seeing his bleeding nose, but he just wipes the blood, his eyes cold and unwavering, as the hunter issues a final threat: stay away from him or die. And Oh Chang gets up, brushing off the clerk's concern, walking out into the city, leaving the entire confrontation behind him. His name is Oh Chang, a level 3 with no profession. And a flashback begins to a time when strange portals first appeared on Earth, unleashing monsters that poured out, threatening all of humanity, a situation that quickly spiraled into an uncontrollable invasion. But just before humanity's fall, warriors with special powers emerged, and their existence gave rise to the adventurer profession, where the rule was simple: kill your first monster to awaken your power, and a younger Oh Chang stands over his first kill full of hope, seeing the system prompt a lottery for his future power. But his result was rarer than even the highest level reward, for he had pulled the forbidden class, necromancer. In this new world, the talented and wealthy hoard all the resources, leaving the weak as scattered individuals struggling just to survive. But the powerful left a small window of opportunity for them, and now a team of high-level adventurers gathers in an abandoned district, where Oh Chang arrives, a level 3 nobody among a crowd of level 20s. As two familiar men with pickaxes call out to him, all of them wondering why such strong hunters are here for a simple E-level dungeon, and he pulls out his precious notebook ready to observe, when our boy and his companion suddenly stop in their tracks, as a powerful adventurer appears, crackling with raw energy, dismissing his armor ready to begin the operation, and the kid recognizes him instantly from the store, this man rewarding his team with brand new equipment, his cold eyes scanning the area until they lock onto our boy. And his companion panics, urging him to leave now. But a hand clamps down hard on his shoulder, as the man reminds him of his previous threat, and the kid struggles, demanding to be released. But this man's patience is wearing thin, so he grabs the kid by the hair and slams him hard into the ground, mocking the boy for being given such garbage work. But then he notices the kid is coughing up blood, and his companion threatens to report the assault, so the man unleashes a fiery blast to silence her, sending the crowd scattering in absolute terror, just as a safety officer arrives, demanding that he stop. But he plays it off as nothing more than a harmless joke, then leans down, taunting the useless adventurer on the ground, while the woman rushes to check on the injured boy, and nearby two of the boss's cronies watch with disdain as this boss gives his final orders over the phone. He tells his companion he's fine now, though he's clearly not, because this portal's level is dangerously unknown, and they are failures hired for simple mining. But for our boy, magic is pure agony, a rejection reaction that racks his entire body, and he endures it all just to survive. As they enter the Tower of Forgetfulness, he stumbles through the portal, the energy tearing at him, and the magic immediately takes its toll, but he grits his teeth knowing this pain would come, as his team rushes to his side, calling his name Chang, while two others mock him from a distance. But Chang stays silent, enduring their taunts, their task laid out before them: mine the glowing crystals. And his friend looks for him, concerned for his well-being. But Chang is already hard at work, as the others watch, shocked by his resilience, wondering about the title he was given: an abandoned adventurer, a rare and terrible curse. Their bodies reject magic, causing severe internal damage, where a simple skill can trigger a fatal reaction, and even healing magic becomes a deadly poison, locking them out of all professions because of this magic disease. Yet Chang has survived dozens of portals on sheer will alone, shattering another crystal, proving his strength. Unable to fight, he relies on exploration to level up, mining to save money for an incredibly expensive cure, with his ultimate goal being to join the Explorer Guild as a strategist. He clutches the recruitment ad, his resolve hardening, vowing he will become an adventurer again. Back in the dungeon, the final load of crystals is gathered, and the party worries about staying too long, spawning stronger monsters. But our boy senses something is terribly wrong here. Feeling a powerful magic source from the boss room, But there isn't one boss tower, there are two, and suddenly a blast of energy sends him flying as a new party appears sent by their president to kill him. He recognizes the man who gave the order, but why is this man so relentlessly targeting him? The attackers mock his magic disease, calling it pitiful, believing his weakness is a sin worthy of death. He staggers to his feet as his friends try to hold him back, but the leader prepares a powerful skill to end his suffering. And a dark, knowing smile spreads across his face as he finally understands the man's twisted offer of help, calling them out as reckless fools who play with lives, asking, "Do you think you're gods?" And an immense power erupts from the ground around him. Elsewhere, a man in a car discusses a new association policy, the very same man ordering the trash to be cleaned up quietly. This red-haired man smirks, confident in his plan, vowing that no one he has marked for death will escape. His philosophy is simple: the strong rule the world, and the weak are utterly disposable. Back in the dungeon, our boy dodges a fiery blast. Recognizing the attack, a level 3 fireball, they're not trying to kill him, just toying with him, but with the huge level gap, any hit is lethal, and the explosion consumes the entire area. As the blonde mage celebrates a direct hit, but something slices through the flames, and in a desperate roar the kid summons his weapon. The mage watches, his expression unreadable, his calm shattering into pure disbelief. But the kid's body is failing, his heart pounding wildly, and he's slammed violently to the ground, a boot grinding his face into the dirt. As the final order is given, "End it," and a blade plunges deep into his chest, pain flooding his senses as his life fades away. He questions his fate, dying just for being powerless. As the other victims realize they're just loose ends to be cut, and a massacre unfolds in the dungeon's shadows, his final thought is one of pure defiance, when suddenly a system alert triggers: a hell-level boss has appeared. And a towering pagoda appears in a flash of light. Far below, a lone person walks a desolate path, this blonde-haired woman sensing a sudden threat. As a white-haired warrior crashes down with immense power, our boy's consciousness fading from the brutal assault. In his final moments, he sees death's emissaries, the legendary Soul Reaper's black and white impermanence, and he awakens alone in an endless dark void. Disoriented, he wonders what happened to him. When a system message announces a player's entry, he hears a voice but can't see its source. It commands him to proceed to a small shrine. He cautiously approaches the strange object, realizing the voice seems to be coming from inside. He reaches out, trying to open the small door, but something bites him and he yelps in pain. As a talking pen-like creature emerges, furious, asking if he's the one who activated the system. The creature scoffs at his confusion, revealing he's standing on the gate to the Underworld, that he has arrived at the one and only ghost gate, and the pen then tells him he's already dead. The kid's eyes widen in disbelief as he struggles to process the terrible news. A flash of memory confirming his violent end, a memory surfacing of a bloody battle in the dungeon, and the horrible truth crashes down on him: he was killed. He collapses, screaming from the phantom pain of his death, as a strange floating brush with a mouth tells him to be quiet. All he ever wanted was to cure his illness and be an adventurer. But the creature mocks his despair, saying his life was worthless anyway, telling him to accept his death and move on. So he walks a lonely path into the great beyond, and the brush is surprised by his quick acceptance of his fate. They arrive in a dark, mysterious void, when suddenly torches flare to life all around them, revealing a massive chamber, the trial site, and this place feels just like a dungeon to him, his eyes widening in disbelief at what he sees, for before him sits the colossal, lifeless body of King Yama. The brush begins to explain the rules of the underworld. Here the souls of the dead are judged for their deeds. The wicked are cast into an eternity of punishment, and King Yama is the sole ruler of this realm. He recognizes the name from ancient mythology, arguing that the ruler of the underworld cannot die, but the brush points to an engraved wall as proof, telling him to read the ancient text for himself. He doesn't recognize the language, yet somehow he can read it. These engravings are not a story but a record of events. He examines a massive crack in the wall, where a mural reveals an ancient epic battle. The details are worn and unclear, but a strange spiky symbol stands out. The story tells of a defeated King Yama beheaded and buried here. His final accusations etched into the stone, a war between the rulers of the world. A mission window suddenly appears before him, and the talking pen calls it a trial to return to life, explaining he's not dead but not fully alive either. Enraged, he punches the strange guide, but realizes this mission is his only hope to live. The reward, a legendary soup, could cure his illness, and he accepts the trial without hesitation. The world distorts as the trial begins, and suddenly two monstrous faces loom over him. Then countless heads begin to fall from the darkness, trapping him in a storm of floating heads. The trial begins. Find the one true head. He stares at a mountain of them, completely overwhelmed, while his guide just laughs at his despair. He starts by discarding the obvious fakes, knowing every puzzle must have a clue, but this place seems to have no hints at all. So he turns back to the wall. The hint must be in the text. As the spirits crowd in demanding his secret, the pen spirit insists, but he ignores it. It tempts him, promising the solution. And with a manic grin, he grabs a new head, the inscription describing King Yama's face. He asks the pen for confirmation. When a purple glow emanates from the head's eye, he realizes his mistake too late. As the head detonates in his hands, the shockwave sending him flying, and the pen mocks him. Another wrong answer. He wonders what he missed in the clue. There must be another condition he's overlooking. And the pen offers a new terrible secret. This entire trial is on a timer. The clock is how long his friends survive upstairs. His own death triggered this system. These safeguards are meant to kill monsters, but now they'll kill all the humans left behind. He panics, thinking of his friends. If he doesn't hurry, everyone will die. He has to find the answer now, pushing through the chaos, desperate. Upstairs, the executioner is ready. He spots a cloaked head in the pile, grabbing the head by its hair. A final desperate surge of power. A blinding flash engulfs the room, and the heads are blown away in the blast. He surfaces from the pile of bodies, realizing he was unconscious. The guide tells him 20 minutes have passed, and worse, he triggered a trap, increasing the penalty. The kid stares, completely stunned. Then a slow, chilling laugh begins. The guide is shocked by his sudden madness. He finally understands the half-dead potion. This cure-all was never a cure, it was a dark joke. The creature thinks he's lost his mind. But our boy remembers a specific dungeon rule. The dark joke, a dungeon with no solution, and the guide asks if he's giving up. He slumps down, accepting his fate. These dungeons are designed to break players, presenting impossible choices to cause despair. He thought this was his second chance, but then he notices the guide's behavior. It's not just taunting, it seems happy. Suddenly, the creature is struck by an unseen force, screaming at him to watch out. But he sits back with a knowing smirk. Around him, countless heads float aimlessly. And he realizes some are moving with purpose. Something unseen is stirring the chaos. A hidden message on the wall reveals a clue, and he decides to test his new theory. Spinning around, trying it again. If he's right, the true head will react. A dark mass with a crown charges forward, but it spins wildly out of his control. The guardian entity screaming at him in fury. It realizes the kid is getting too close to the truth. Its angry tone suddenly turning friendly. It begs him to give up, but he sees the fear in its voice. The key to the trial is hidden in plain sight. The mission was always to find the one real head. This isn't just a tomb defense system, it's a message left for a specific person. The true answer is always fixed right behind him. He knows the location, but there's one last step. He turns, surprising the guardian entity. Before him stands the massive body of King Yama. He needs a smarter way to solve this. The final step must involve the king's old friend. The guardian shrieks, telling him to stop and just die. But the kid stares down the massive dark creature, realizing the answer is something an enemy lacks: courtesy. Ignoring the beast, he walks away with a plan, clasping his hands in a formal gesture, convinced this is how he'll solve the trial. He presents the disembodied head back to the sky, but nothing happens. His attempt fails. He looks up at the robed being's ceremonial hat, and the truth dawns on him: this is King Yama. He immediately drops to his knees, performing a deep, reverent bow, as the Lord of the Underworld looms over him. A piercing red light explodes from King Yama, the Underworld Lord declaring his need to be reborn, and a system window appears, trial completed. Our boy is enveloped in a column of light. He can feel magic flowing, his illness is cured, and he's also earned a new job, intern of the Underworld. He inspects the screen, wondering about this hidden job, when suddenly the monstrous creature returns furious. He realizes it never wanted him to pass the trial, its massive jaws open wide, lined with sharp teeth. The beast looms over him, its threat now very real. It lunges, ready to swallow him whole. But its voice is now pleading, making excuses to King Yama for the trial's outcome. A dark presence terrifies him, and his consciousness begins to fade. Visions of the brutal trial flashing before him. A mysterious voice laments its failed plan. In this world, adventurers risk it all for wealth. Outside a portal, families wait anxiously, where for many even a body is a blessing. Junho wakes up trapped in darkness. A drawer slides open, freeing him, and a familiar, grotesque face greets him. He reacts instantly with a punch. As the pen explains, there in the morgue, Junho realizes the Adventurers Association found them, believing he's the only survivor, but the pen reveals two others made it out alive. They need to escape the basement floor. A morgue attendant wheels in another body, exhausted from a long, grim day. When suddenly Junho sprints right past him, the attendant yells at the kid to stop, but faints from shock at the sight, and the pen urges Junho to leave the man. So Junho drops the attendant and bolts for the elevator. Outside, an official handles the grim phone calls. Collapsing onto a bench, utterly drained, a woman in a suit complains about a portal malfunction. She turns, hearing a voice call out, but looking around she sees no one. Meanwhile, our boy heads for a quiet neighborhood, stepping into his small, bare apartment. A floating mouth spirit suddenly appears behind him, taunting him, saying the underworld is more spacious. He collapses on his bed, admitting he lives alone. His parents were adventurers lost inside a portal, a memory of them before they disappeared forever. He remembers waiting for a return that never came. As the spirit mocks him, he searches online for answers, thinking about the legendary rare professions, classes like the glowing oracle or the powerful demonic charioteer. These hidden jobs are now relics of the past. He stares at his phone, a thought dawning. Intern of the Underworld, a hidden profession. If this is real, it could change everything. But he questions returning to the adventure life, a world where the strong exploit the weak. He grits his teeth, remembering their cruelty, the face of the man who killed him flashing in his mind. His hand clenches into a fist. Could he survive? But without being an adventurer, he has no other way. He remembers his lonely, bullied past, but now he has a new life. He tries to summon his skill window, but nothing appears, just like before. A strange voice mocks his low level, when suddenly a golden light fills the room. The system issues a new quest. His destination, the Adventurers Association. Inside, the sentient brush reminds him it's invisible to others. The brush zips away, eager to explore, and they find the awakening chamber. This building is a hub for all adventure needs. The brush shivers with excitement. Above them, countless portals glow with power. The brush explains these are training portals for beginners, mocking him for being a knowledgeable level 1. He bumps into a heavily armored adventurer. The man glares down unimpressed, his eyes glowing, activating a skill to scan our boy. Unfazed, he accepts the condescending scan, but even that brute bows to a man in a suit. The brush scoffs at the world's power dynamics. Just then a new window materializes. His eyes widen in surprise. The quest updates, choose a dungeon. He had decided to take it slow, just one careful step at a time, but his sentient brush began to demand why he was waiting, yanking him towards a glowing portal, forcing him to go in completely alone. As a new quest appeared on his screen, clear the dungeon solo, and he panicked, screaming that dungeons absolutely required a full party. Remembering how he had just been applying for a level 3 dungeon at the association, carefully considering all of his options on a small tablet. But the impatient brush had made the final reckless choice for him, which led to him furiously shaking the creature for its thoughtlessness, while a nearby receptionist cheerfully confirmed his forced entry into the instance. And as an apology, the brush offered him a special life-saving skill, though the quest's first step was to slap the brush directly across the face, and it warned him that abandoning this strange task would have dire consequences, because if he gave up on the quest, he would also give up his life. So with no other choice, he landed a solid, resounding slap, remembering that the system had promised a gift for completing his first task, which activated a brand new skill, the burning power of hellfire. And then another skill unlocked, summoning 3 paper doppelgangers to his side, leaving him ecstatic, realizing he had just gained 3 life-saving skills. Unable to believe that a simple slap could yield such an incredible reward, so he began to assess his new abilities and his meager supplies, concluding his only option was a stealth run, avoiding all the monsters, since the mission objective was to retrieve a beacon, not to kill the final boss. And he learned that these portals were reusable as long as the boss remained alive, a loophole the association often used to create training grounds for new adventurers. But before he could even begin his plan, he needed to be absolutely sure of something, testing his magic-infused gear by dipping his foot into the water, as his boots rippled with a latent dormant power, and his eyes widened in confirmation, a wave of relief washing over him. The magic poison that had plagued him for so long was finally gone, so he slung his pack over his shoulder, finally ready for the dungeon. And they began to follow a crude map through the dark, flooded ruins, where the path ahead seemed deceptively calm and quiet, though his companion warned him of the hidden dangers lurking in the water, like the soul frog that stood guard, a silent magical sentinel, and so far no other monsters had appeared to challenge them, making him hope for a clean, easy clear of the entire area. But of course, the system then issued a brand new quest, and he immediately blamed his companion for this sudden, unwanted mission. Resigned to his fate, recalling the dungeon's main and most dangerous threat, as he approached a corner, all of his senses on high alert, where a strange creature holding a trident suddenly appeared, a lone duck man, which was a very rare and valuable opportunity. But the monster spotted him almost immediately and began to panic, trying to flee while desperately trying to call for backup, and he spotted the small wooden whistle hanging around its neck, summoning his hellfire skill to strike the creature down quickly. When a voice screamed a new instruction directly into his mind, and a completely new strategy suddenly clicked into place, so he summoned his weapon, infusing its blade with crackling fire, unleashing a blinding wave of incredible searing power, a torrent of white fire that completely engulfed the nearby monsters, as the duck-like creature screeched, trapped within the roaring flames, and his weapon praised the powerful mono-fueled attack, while one of the creatures began to beg pathetically for its life, prompting his weapon to ask if he was actually going to show it any mercy. But he remembered a past monster's cruel and costly deception, making his choice as he thrust his blade forward without hesitation, because in a dungeon, begging for your life is completely meaningless, though the powerful attack had cost him nearly half of his total mana, so he quickly drank a potion to begin his recovery, while his weapon began to question his strange choice of a rapier. And he started to wonder why the quest wasn't officially over yet. Checking his quest log, which showed 0 monsters had been defeated, as the real target blew its whistle with its very last breath, making him realize his critical and potentially fatal error. For while the kill was confirmed, it was already far too late, because the sound of the whistle summoned a horde of angry duckmen, and he found himself completely surrounded in the murky water, cornered and desperate, his eyes beginning to glow with power, as the world around him shattered into thousands of puzzle pieces. And in the swirling chaos, he spotted a single solitary piece. Realizing the way out of this trap wasn't a door at all, so he reached out his hand and grabbed the strange floating object, causing a massive explosion of brilliant light to erupt from his position, which momentarily distracted the duckmen with all the chaos. And on the surface, the monsters began to search for him frantically, while below, our boy was already making his daring escape, having used a fiery smoke bomb as a clever and effective diversion. But he knew he couldn't possibly outswim them if he was spotted, when he sensed a massive dark shadow passing by just above him. So he pushed forward, trying his best to stay hidden from view, but something was coming up fast, approaching from directly behind, a long-tongued creature that screamed right into his face, and the commotion alerted a duckman patrolling on the surface. So they broke through the water and he knew they had been spotted. As the duckmen charged towards them, their entire escape plan now ruined. With only one path forward, making a fight completely inevitable, so they began to leap across the treacherous watery terrain, and he channeled a surge of energy directly into his feet, landing with a powerful burst of incredible forward speed. But their path was blocked once again by more enemies, who swarmed down from the cliffs high above them, drawn in by the earlier explosion that had attracted a massive horde, and among them he saw a skilled blindfolded leader. So with no other choice, he activated a brand new skill. The Paperman ability, which created 3 confusing decoys, and his paper clone surged forward, a perfect and timely distraction, allowing him to seize the moment, striking at a nearby enemy. But his attack failed and the blade somehow struck him instead. As the brush explained the final crucial step, he had to draw the eyes, slimming down its form ready to provide the necessary ink, a technique that would imbue the Paperman with a piece of his own soul. But outside, a monster let out a terrifying guttural roar, as a whole pack of them began closing in incredibly fast, and he fought back, struggling with his weapon's surprising weight, finding himself too slow, becoming overwhelmed by their relentless attacks. As the monsters saw that their targets were finally cornered, and he gritted his teeth, barely managing to hold on, gambling everything he had on one last desperate attack, his strike unleashing a powerful wave of pure white fire, which made the creatures recoil from the dangerous searing flames. But his energy was draining at a dangerously fast rate, and he finally reached the first of the lifeless papermen, drawing its eye with a quick flash of brilliant red ink. As a strange energy infused the paper, bringing the clones to life, and the duck monsters were stunned by these unexpected new arrivals, realizing it was some kind of shadow clone technique, as the papermen charged forward, a soulless and unstoppable vanguard, who effortlessly began to overwhelm the surprised monsters. The brush noted their durability, urging him to make an escape, so he seized the chance, vaulting through a crumbling section of a wall. But the wounds from his last fight suddenly reopened, and he stumbled onward, leaving a trail of blood behind him, knowing his first priority was to find a safe place to recover, when he found a strange door pulsing with a faint magical energy, and he checked his map, confirming his current location, realizing this was the dungeon boss's door, which was meant to be sealed. But for some unknown reason, this one was slightly open, and a sound echoed behind him. The duckman had finally caught up, meaning he had to get out of there immediately, as an attack sliced through the air right beside his head, trapping him in a dead end, now completely surrounded, while the monstrous duckmen closed in, ready for the kill. But suddenly they all froze, their faces filled with absolute terror, and he couldn't understand why they were so suddenly afraid. Because they weren't scared of him, but of something else entirely. A colossal creature that was looming directly behind him, and he slowly turned his head, his eyes wide with pure shock. Meanwhile, the Adventurers Association was investigating the portal incident, where a manager was handling the official response over the phone, learning that a low-level adventurer had entered the portal alone, and now it was sealed with the adventurer trapped somewhere inside. So the manager demanded the kid's file, assuming it was a death sentence, dismissing the adventurer as just another fool until he read the report, which identified him as Chang with a profession listed as unknown, an undiscovered talent who already had 12 successful dungeon clears. But the manager simply tossed the file aside, deeming him unimportant, because he had a much bigger problem. High-level adventurers were disappearing, and back in the dungeon, Chang was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, as the shark-masked brute brought its massive foot down, and our boy launched a desperate flying kick in defense, barely blocking the next blow, urged by his companion to get up and run, while the grinning brute loomed over the chaotic battlefield, turning its attention to the weaker monsters nearby, smashing the duckmen with incredible brutal force. And the kid saw an opening, canceling his skill in order to flee. But the dungeon portal was now sealed completely shut, and he realized the last attack had knocked his backpack away, as a voice questioned his sudden, dangerous detour. But he needed the supplies inside if he was going to keep fighting. And the final quest was now clear: he had to defeat the boss, when suddenly he felt a strange and powerful gust of wind, as the brute's swing sent him flying backwards through the air, his eyes widening in pure alarm, and he dodged another crushing blow just in the nick of time, sacrificing one of his paper dolls to make the escape, unleashing his hellfire skill from high above the creature before splashing down hard into the cold, dark water, grabbing his backpack while he watched the roaring flames. But the brute emerged from the inferno barely singed, the monster coughing, clearly wounded but not yet defeated, and it retaliated with a powerful blast of dark energy, which cancelled the kid's own skill upon impact, leaving his mana depleted and his weapon broken. But he claimed he had succeeded, even though the armored boss was completely unharmed, while our boy was now badly injured and exhausted, realizing that a solo clear was truly impossible. As a system warning flashed before his eyes: resist or fail. And after everything he had been through, he might actually die here, his dream of becoming a great adventurer slowly fading away, and he still wanted to see all the other worlds, which sparked a final surge of will, a cry of "I can't die," when suddenly a strange entity appeared, screaming that it had a way, and a blast of energy erupted from absolutely nowhere, sending a small object flying through the air, which zipped right past the massive boss monster. As a talking pen landed on the ground right before him, telling him to grab it and pour all of his mana inside, because this pen could transform into any weapon he could imagine, and this was a final desperate test of his will to survive. Knowing the boss's skin was like impenetrable steel armor, so he needed a weapon that could shatter its defenses, and he knew the monster would take the bait he was about to offer, as the world warped around him, becoming a vast, endless ocean, where two massive whale heads emerged from the depths. And he knew he had only one chance to strike. As the boss swung its hammer wildly and without thought, and with a mighty roar he heaved his powerful new weapon, the pen having become a colossal flag swinging down from above, and he roared again, his prediction coming true, as the pen warned him that the enemy might adapt to his strategy, and just as foretold, the monster changed its attack pattern, a blood-soaked grin spreading across its terrifying face. But our boy wasn't finished with his plan just yet. Unleashing his final reserves of mana in one last push, a searing flame striking the monster's pre-existing wound, and with a desperate cry he called for another transformation. As the pen ignited, burning his hands with intense heat, because the flames were just a feint to destroy its outer armor, and a system window confirmed his victory. Dungeon cleared, though a backlash of immense power surged through his body. He smiled through the pain, knowing it was a success, and a new ability was acquired, a skill called Judgment. While his Hellfire skill proficiency was now completely maxed out, exhausted, he finally collapsed on the boss's remains, as the pen offered a rare sincere apology and its thanks, before it quickly got flustered, denying any ulterior motives. And back at the association, he reported the open boss room, insisting that it was a serious danger to other adventurers, but the receptionist dismissed it as just another false claim, giving him a placating answer. But he sensed someone else was listening, a man with a scarred face and a dark, menacing aura who suddenly appeared. And this manager congratulated him on his successful solo clear, before walking away, leaving the staff visibly relieved by his departure. And Cheng asked if his story was enough proof, while an official reviewed a death certificate issued for Cheng, realizing the man who was confirmed dead was somehow still alive. So he dismissed his subordinate, his mind racing with possibilities. And alone in his office, he made a private untraceable call, which connected to Lee Hexia, a powerful and influential heir. And the topic of their conversation was the corpse dungeon incident, as Lee Hexia explained their scheme to exploit a dungeon bug. But the plan had failed and the rewards never upgraded as they'd hoped, making the official manager Jin realize someone had stolen their prize, though Lee Hexia insisted it was impossible as the portal had been watched, and Jin seethed with anger, ordering him to eliminate the survivor who had just left. A kid who somehow survived a dungeon collapse and a team of level 20 adventurers. Outside, Cheng felt the pain of his injuries, disappointed by the meager loot, since the association's rules gave him only a small share of the profit, and his phone showed a paltry reward of only 500 yen, when suddenly a golden system window appeared right before him, listing his completed tasks and special bonuses for his incredible luck. And he received a special reward, something called a stretching pill, which made Cheng erupt with pure unadulterated excitement. Because this single item could change absolutely everything for him, as leveling up becomes nearly impossible for anyone after level 5, and new adventurers must rely on grueling, painful physical training. But professional training costs an absolute fortune, making this pill the key to breaking through that impossible wall. And then a new prompt appeared on the screen. So days later, they visited the massive adventure archive, where his companion frantically searched for data on his new class, and Oh Cheng's attribute screen materialized before his eyes, which now crackled with a strange and unfamiliar new power, as he could suddenly see the stats of everyone around him, an ability that surpassed even the legendary seer skill. But a bizarre system command suddenly distracted him, and the screen's message was chilling: you must die to train. So back home, he began to analyze his new and confusing stats, considering how other more traditional classes work, like mages, or even bards who focus primarily on support skills, when suddenly something smacked him hard right across the face. And his brush spirit appeared furious at his ongoing doubt, declaring that their class was one that controls life and death itself. And Oh Cheng was skeptical, but the spirit mentioned a special item, though he dismissed the judgment pen as just a weak myth. But the spirit grabbed him, insisting he was missing the full set, and it spoke of a legendary book from ancient mythology, the fabled Book of Life and Death, which Oh Cheng called a cheap necromancer knockoff, angering the spirit. But its arrogant and confident posture made him reconsider his words. And it tried to reveal more, but its voice corrupted into pure static, as the information was beyond the system's current scope, and these game-like rules were bleeding into the real world. So he dug into the records of god-level dungeons, but found no mention of a trial or a system anywhere, making him wonder why he was the only one chosen for this power. And the spirit chided him for thinking out loud again, telling him to stop questioning his incredible good fortune, because not everyone is qualified to face a god's trial. So he demanded to know why he of all people was chosen, but the answer, it said, was a secret that had to be kept for now, and his priority must be on getting stronger as fast as possible, because he knew the path ahead would only get harder. As a news report flashed on a nearby public screen, revealing the dungeon massacre was now public knowledge, and he realized the masterminds behind it must have enormous power, vowing to himself to never be that helpless ever again. As his spirit confirmed that 2 others had survived the attack, but the official reports were claiming there were no survivors at all. So the spirit suggested they should find his missing friends, and their search eventually led them to a large city hospital, where he posed as a concerned relative to get more information. And the receptionist confirmed that 2 survivors had been admitted, but suddenly a monster materialized in the middle of the lobby, unleashing chaos as it grabbed people with its slimy tentacles. And then another creature appeared attacking the first monster. While elsewhere a woman in a strange uniform arrived on the scene, complaining about being summoned for such a small, insignificant matter, as a tentacle snatched a woman from the hallway, and panic erupted as the appendage whipped around violently. While in another room a group of martial artists noticed the attack, scrambling to protect the wounded patients in their care, but the tentacles began grabbing them as well, and our boy arrived shocked to see monsters inside a hospital. As more appendages descended from the ceiling seizing everyone in sight, and one lunged directly for him, but he was suddenly engulfed by a bright teleportation portal, and the victims found themselves in a strange dark void, where a woman screamed pointing toward a single blinding light, as they materialized inside a grand sunlit hall, and confetti rained down on the confused and terrified group. While a message appeared, fairy tales change as you age, and the system announced that their task would now be issued. Their mission to save the legendary Frog Kingdom, with the main objective being to get a kiss from the princess, which some of the men saw as a golden once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, while a rooftop observer analyzed the portal's sudden eruption, and system windows displayed the adventurers' various classes, as 2 high-level adventurers grinned ready for a good fight, but a martial artist worried about the innocent people left behind, while the others were already arguing over the portal's potential loot. And a warning flashed about dangerous lone wolf adventurers, as egos began to clash over who would get the princess's kiss, and a voice of caution warned them all against acting rashly. But our boy stepped forward and was immediately called a fool for his recklessness, as a hand clamped down hard on the top of his head, and he was accused of trying to snatch all the loot for himself, while 2 thugs surrounded him mocking his obviously low level. And he gritted his teeth, stunned by their raw, overwhelming strength, as a girl in a school uniform shouted at him to be careful, but the lead thug just smirked, dismissing her warning, until a muscular adventurer intervened, stopping the fight, and he thanked the kid for trying to be cautious, while the girl scolded him, explaining these portals are completely lawless, making him realize his mistake could have been fatal, as other people began to panic, revealing they weren't adventurers at all, and he tried to calm them, reflecting on his own impulsiveness, explaining the theory of portals as reflections of old stories, reminding them the goal was just to complete the task and survive. But a wealthy-looking girl declared she wouldn't participate, and the other non-combatants decided to wait with her, which made our boy question their fractured, failing strategy, when suddenly the Frog Princess appeared before them, and the mission began as the adventurers stood ready. Their objective revealed once more: get the princess's kiss, which made the muscular man collapse in utter disgust and horror, as a massive green body slammed down right before them, and the grotesque Frog Princess loomed over the terrified adventurers, while the team leader's men stood frozen in complete shock, and our boy shouted, realizing this was a death sentence, as player hostility triggered an immediate and deadly response, and he understood now the dungeon had absolute unbreakable rules, making him wonder how anyone could possibly conquer this place, as panic spread and everyone tried to run for their lives. But 2 blue-jacketed thugs found it all very interesting, and the kid connected the dots between disrespect and instant death, realizing he had figured out the 3 unbreakable laws of this realm, as his guide appeared, revealing a terrifying and hidden truth: that this realm was a trial with a broken buggy system, and the entity's only advice was to worry about himself. But the mention of bugs triggered a dark and painful memory, and he knew this unstable system could be disastrous for them all. So he stood before the crowd trying to stop the panic stampede, but a blonde student immediately challenged his authority, and he dared her to leave and test the rules for herself, when a pink-haired woman stepped in to support him, praising his courage, seeing that he understood the dungeon, and the others agreed they had no choice but to cooperate, so she pressured him, revealing the mission's hidden details, and a system alert confirmed that everyone had accepted the quest. As the survivors realized, he had just saved all of their lives. And the blonde student who had doubted him now ran in terror, because the mission was beginning: save the kingdom from an insect army, and there was a quiet moment, a calm before the storm, when suddenly the players were teleported all across the castle, and the 2 adventurer brothers were also separated from each other, while others were scattered, paired with panicked and useless strangers, and one student found herself completely and utterly alone, as a new mission appeared on their screens: swarm invasion. And they must exterminate the bugs and protect the princess, making our boy realize they'd been split into pairs to raise the stakes, and the bugs were weak but their numbers were seemingly endless, so his demonic artifact urged him to burn them all at once, as it had a new trait reducing his overall magic consumption, and he told his new partner to get behind him for safety, but she clung to him tightly, a little too close for comfort, as he unleashed a torrent of blue flames straight upwards. But he felt a sudden and dramatic shift in the battle, because the adventurer brothers had abandoned their post, and a system alert confirmed it: someone had fled their position. So now all the remaining bugs were converging on the others, and the swarm multiplied, becoming truly overwhelming. Then the death notifications began to appear one by one, and he was shocked that people were already failing the trial, as his artifact screamed at him to go all out, to hold nothing back. So he grabbed his partner and unleashed everything he had left. A massive explosion of power that scoured the entire hall. And a final message appeared, mission completed. The pink-haired girl was thanking him for the save, just as he began to explain the dungeon's primary trap was to divide and conquer, when a desperate scream suddenly echoed through the long hall, revealing it was the other female student running from a dark and swarming horde. So he rushed to her side, feeling a wave of relief to see another survivor. But his hope faltered when he realized she was only a support mage with no attack power of her own, which meant the entire terrifying swarm was still right behind her. A chittering tide of insected monsters closing in with terrifying speed, and while she was stunned by his incredible power, he was now completely out of mana, which is when he revealed the strange notification he'd received, the one that said she had died. And they quickly discovered they had both been sent false death alerts for each other. A cruel trick, he explained, as part of the dungeon's psychological warfare, a familiar twisted feeling he recognized as a god's trial. Nothing more than a dark joke, a mechanism designed specifically to break the player's spirits. And in that moment he knew the real challenge was only just beginning, as a new mission objective appeared before him: survive until the end, while his system finally reconnected, asking him for a plan of action, prompting him to tell the two girls to stay put while he went to search the area. Sprinting off into the gloom, suspecting the other players were hunting the dungeon's boss, and upon entering a nearby room he found a gruesome pile of bodies. Instantly recognizing two of the fallen adventurers from before, his eyes beginning to glow with a cold rage knowing they had died because of their own greed, as a flash of memory showed him a brutal, selfish betrayal, before a sudden noise from behind made him turn around, where a giant frog-like monster was tearing through the remaining survivors. And two brothers were arguing over a near miss with the beast, the armored one grinning with a wild look in his eyes, hungry for the coming battle, when suddenly our boy appeared silently in the doorway, his own eyes glowing with a chilling cold purpose, sparked by a memory of learning about the deaths of other adventurers, his system explaining the brutal competition that existed for dungeon loot, and he resolved that he wouldn't let these men sacrifice anyone else for their personal gain. Just as the blue-jacketed brother fired the final shots from his weapon, the bullet slamming hard into the giant insect monster, causing the creature to reel back from the powerful attack, while the armored brother stood over the beast looking completely victorious. But the MC moved in a blur, a flash of impossible speed, making the brother turn, shocked by his sheer audacity, as our boy challenged him directly, a dark power gathering at his side, and a black blade sliced cleanly through the room's tense air. The kill stolen from them in a single fluid instant, meaning the boss was defeated, but their mission had now officially failed. And from the fallen creature a new hero began to emerge, the Frog Knight, leaving everyone completely stunned by this bizarre and unexpected turn of events, while the armored brother roared in a fit of pure unadulterated rage, and the MC quickly activated his yin-yang eye panel to assess the new threat, as the enraged brother kicked the Frog Knight aside contemptuously, his partner already preparing a powerful energy-based attack, winding up for what looked like a devastating explosive throw, sending a glowing projectile flying directly at the frog's armored head. But it was the armored player who took a devastating blow instead, as he was sent flying by a swift, powerful slash from the Frog Knight's sword, and his friend could only scream out in absolute horror, while our boy's eyes narrowed, watching the chaos unfold with grim focus, his system flashing a warning that this new enemy was far too strong to fight, which didn't stop another player from charging forward seeking immediate revenge, but he was effortlessly and violently swatted aside. And suddenly the Frog Knight's true mission was revealed, on a quest panel that only our boy could see, stating the Knight's one and only goal: to kill all otherworldly heroes, and he finally understood the dungeon's truly twisted objective, while the other players were still completely lost and confused. So he shouted a desperate warning just as a heavy blade sliced down, for the Frog Knight was already charging toward a new target, using a curse skill that pulled the helpless players into its deadly range, raising its sword high over another terrified student and cutting one down without a moment of hesitation. But something in the air made it pause its rampage as it dodged a sudden sharp counterattack that came from nowhere. Enraged, the knight turned and promised a swift and painful death. But our boy stood his ground, his gauntlet beginning to glow with power, before he turned and ran, deliberately luring his powerful foe, and the Frog Knight gave chase almost immediately, as a shadowy power erupted from the MC's back, their weapons clashing in a brilliant shower of sparks, before the armored Frog Knight dove down from above sword first, and he blocked with his shield the impact so great it numbed his teeth, the ground shattering around him as he was thrown back by the force. Realizing it took all of his strength just to defend himself, with the knight looming over him ready to end the fight, but he countered with a desperate last-ditch shield bash, the recoil sending him flying backward into a solid wall, leaving his opponent dazed for a moment, seeing stars, when a sudden burst of magic healed and restored the creature completely, and the Frog Knight regained its senses, now much more wary of him, as three other survivors rushed to his side in a state of panic. The pink-haired girl quickly explaining the monster's goal was to kill them all, and she identified their classes, suggesting they should form a party to survive, though as a support mage she still believed that hiding was the safer option. But he told her the knight was simply too fast, that they could never escape it. Its incredible speed was its greatest weapon, unlike the slow-moving twins from before, but with their team's combined buffs and debuffs they might actually have a shot. and he truly believed that if they could coordinate their attacks they could win, which made the girl despair seeing their low levels against such a powerful beast, and she scoffed at his unnervingly calm demeanor in the middle of this crisis. Unable to believe he actually thought they had a chance to succeed, but seeing the sheer resolve in his eyes she decided to trust his judgment, while the blonde girl protested loudly calling them completely out of their minds. So the pink-haired girl had to explain that running was a guaranteed death sentence, and nearby another survivor was already planning to use them all as human shields. Far away, a report was being delivered on the recent hospital incident, where a manager was panicking over a sudden dungeon portal that had appeared, because two very important VIPs were now trapped somewhere inside, the Golden Consortium's own heirs who were among the missing. And under immense pressure, he finally answered the ringing call. The caller reporting that the infamous deadman Cheng was also inside the dungeon, and he saw a perfect chance to let Cheng die quietly in the dungeon. But a different voice on the line had other more sinister plans, a red-haired man who began to explain his own twisted logic, offering a cunning and cruel suggestion to his associate, which made the manager's face darken as he realized the full extent of the scheme. As the scene shifts to a quick info dump on adventurer classes, the system explaining portal rules and the importance of team composition. And back on the court, the brush materialized to confront our boy, visibly angry about his recent near-death experience, the brush calling out his complete lack of any real combat sense, and questioning how he was managing to defeat these bosses all alone, knowing there was a huge power gap that he shouldn't be able to cross. So he admitted it was just a combination of strong skills and sheer luck. But the brush dismissed his pride as nothing more than a newbie's arrogance, and decided it was time to give him two very crucial lessons. The first being that he didn't truly grasp the concept of power levels, that his last fight had given him a dangerously false sense of his own strength, because a low-level team stands absolutely no chance against a true high-level threat, and the brush demanded to know what in the world he was thinking, as the Frog Knight lunged forward again absolutely furious. And her support magic barely seemed to faze the beast at all, making her admit that her class was weak, her attacks completely useless, and she questioned his plan again, wondering what he could possibly be thinking. But with no other choice, she resolved once more to trust him. While his shield apologized for the few hits that had managed to get through, and the monster began to glow with power, its patience finally gone, a system explanation then begins. Adventure levels are not just simple numbers, but standards that were set by all of those who came before, with each level up bringing significant tangible improvements to core abilities, as strength and speed see clear quantifiable gains with every increase, which makes a large level gap nearly impossible to overcome in a direct fight, a 3-level difference often being considered an absolute death sentence, but unique skills and certain class advantages can sometimes change the rules. And superior technique can allow one to dominate an opponent with equal stats. And our boy has been training relentlessly for just this kind of moment, though he never imagined he could face a monster that was this strong, as he unleashes a torrent of brilliant blue flame from his hands, knowing full well that a single hit at this level gap would be fatal. But his research had revealed his unquenchable flame was entirely unique, and unlike his last foe, this monster had no special fire resistance. It knew nothing of his strange flames or his versatile papermen. And the time for careful planning was now officially over. Because in a clash of power, the weaker side must simply wait for an opening. But a sudden brutal blow sent him reeling backward across the stone. As the Frog Knight's powerful attack landed squarely, the beast seeing an opening unleashing a flaming sword of its own, but the fiery blade was somehow deflected by an unseen force, and our boy sensed a distinct change in the flow of the fight, as the pink-haired girl called out for someone to create a distraction. Remembering the rich girl's earlier cowardice and selfishness, how she used a curse to make others take the fall for her, and meanwhile that same rich girl was simply walking away, snapping at her companion's genuine concern for the others, insisting that her own survival was all that mattered in the end, leaving her friend to despair waiting for a rescue that might never come. Back on the battlefield, a sword was thrown with incredible force, embedding itself deep in the stone of the courtyard, and the MC grabbed it, aiming for a vital spot on the monster. Lunging directly for the creature's heavily armored head, the Frog Knight, visibly shocked by his sudden burst of new speed, but its counterattack was simply too fast for him to dodge, and he was knocked hard to the ground, wounded and vulnerable, when a sudden blast of light intercepted the final killing blow, and the pink-haired girl explained that the pill he gave her had saved him, which is when the Frog Knight realized its main target was now gone, staring down the empty path where she had been. Realizing two of its primary targets had managed to escape, its eyes narrowing with a new and deadly purpose, as it began chasing the two girls who had fled the battle, and he quickly weighed their grim and desperate chances of survival, a new plan already beginning to form in his mind. But his power wouldn't activate no matter how hard he tried, and his brush mentor appeared to explain his critical mistake, that his flame was the original Hellfire Spark, a primordial power that was fueled by souls themselves. So he tried to summon it by shouting its name, and the brush immediately smacked him for being so foolish, scolding him that skills aren't cast by just holding your breath, which left him confused because it had worked for him before. So his mentor began to explain the concept of mana coordination, how the body itself must be used to channel the powerful energy, and he was told to recall the feeling, the sensation of the power, but he couldn't seem to grasp the abstract sensation at all. Wondering how he could possibly see the souls without any mana. When a realization dawned on him, the mana is the engine, and he walked into a dark and dusty storeroom, searching for something very specific among the clutter, finding an old engine he could use to light the fire, as a dark and potent energy began to flow from him, and suddenly he collapsed hard onto the ground, the girl rushing to his side in a state of absolute panic, seeing that over half his mana was gone in a single instant. And his mentor gave him a grave and serious warning. No, it doesn't just consume it, it burns it away completely. And as his eyes opened, a new and terrifying power awakened within him, the world itself seeming to warp and twist before his very eyes, as he saw the enemy knight's impending attack with perfect clarity, his vision piercing straight through the creature to its very core, watching the knight lunge at the two fleeing girls, while a brave classmate tried desperately to hold him back. And a dark, violent energy erupted from his left eye. As one girl fell to the ground, the other standing guard over her, a devastating slash of dark energy then cleaved the knight in two, its entire body dissolving into a cloud of black smoke, and he could see its very soul burning away into nothingness. But the immense power was rapidly consuming his remaining mana, a blazing wave of darkness surging forward from his position, and he knew he just needed a little more time to finish it. As a single blue flame ignited in the center of the void, and he channeled the painful memory of a fallen warrior, intending to burn them all down to ash with this borrowed power. The dark flames completely consuming the enemy before him, until a voice screamed desperately for him to stop, and the power backfired, searing and burning his own arm, warning him not to completely exhaust his mana reserves, leaving the girl completely stunned by his unseen incredible power, as she realized the skill he used was dangerously self-destructive. And he fought to make the dark flames finally dissipate, the dangerous, unstable power at last extinguishing itself, his ally rushing to his side offering him immediate aid. But her healing magic failed to work on him completely, and a system message appeared confirming his hard-won victory, when suddenly a brilliant pillar of light erupted from the ground, and he leveled up, but something about it felt deeply wrong, while a hidden observer watched the entire scene from the shadows, having believed the boy was just another insignificant pawn. But now seeing a dark, unknown power stirring deep within him, though the strange creature ultimately dismissed its own concerns, and elsewhere the blonde girl screamed out in agony and pain, her eyes bleeding profusely, her vision completely gone, calling out for help, feeling completely lost and abandoned, all alone in the vast, empty and silent courtyard, as the system rewarded our boy for managing to survive the ordeal, and he couldn't quite believe that he was still alive. But a critical bug in the system triggered the Frog Princess's fury, and everyone could feel the sudden violent shift in the air, as the grand doors of the castle began to shake and rattle, before they burst open with an incredible explosive force, and a giant enraged frog princess emerged from within, making the current mission objective now seem utterly impossible. Meanwhile, a man in a sharp suit casually checked his watch, this man being OG, the president of the Golden Consortium, as a powerful figure finally arrived to meet with him. And back in the fight, the monstrous princess lunged forward, two grotesque frog monsters charging ahead of her, and he shielded the injured girl whose arm was now fractured, his companion's voice screaming that they were all doomed, while he gritted his teeth wishing desperately for his hellfire. But his mana was completely and utterly gone, leaving him powerless as he faced the monster's terrible wrath, when suddenly a blur of red slammed hard into the beast, a single fist connecting with absolutely crushing force, sending the monster flying backward across the courtyard. As a red-haired rescuer arrived asking for a specific person, and the girl denied being his target, pointing somewhere else, to where a woman in a red dress had fallen in the distance. So he called out to her, but she was just a servant, and his mission was clear: protect the VIP at all costs. So he abandoned them without a second thought, sprinting towards his real target, the monster watching him, Geo, momentarily confused by the interruption, before its attention snapped back to the vulnerable pair, the beast roaring loudly, forcing them to flee for their lives. And meanwhile the rescuer leaped gracefully across the courtyard, finding the real young lady, who was furious at his tardiness, though the rescuer seemed completely unimpressed by her attitude. And as the monster closed in, she began to demand an escape route, so he returned, landing between the monster and the others, grabbing the girl and kicking the beast aside with ease, mockingly praising their survival, which only infuriated them. And the red-haired brawler then demanded a quick update, his solution to the problem being simple: just destroy the bug. A true adventurer, he seemed to relish the impossible challenge, making everyone wonder just how strong is this man, as he strode forward without a single hint of hesitation. A single devastating punch connecting with the creature, and the beast was utterly and completely obliterated. The mission had failed, but the exit portal was now unlocked. And he turned to our boy, a knowing grin spreading across his face, as he clearly recognized the kid's hidden latent talent, while our boy realized the immense, staggering gap in their power, and the brawler asked him a direct question about his profession, because his own skill couldn't identify Oh Chang's mysterious class, and the others were just as curious to know the answer. But his secret profession was something that could not be revealed, and his guide's only advice at that moment was to flee, when suddenly a dark red vortex began to tear open the sky. And panic set in as they knew they needed to escape now, everyone agreeing to talk more after they managed to get out. but the brawler stopped Oh Cheng from leaving just yet, proposing that they should share the portal's valuable loot, an offer the pink-haired girl gratefully and quickly agreed to, and a system reward popped up on Oh Cheng's screen, making him reflect on the incredibly high cost of this reward, while the veteran advised him to focus on his own survival above all else. As he was being persuaded to accept the dangerous deal, the system explaining that dungeons are strictly level-gated, and sea-level portals are a deadly trial for any and all newbies, making him realize this whole new life was just one big gamble. But the rewards promised him the greater strength he craved, and he clenched his fist, his mind finally made up, because he was tired of being so completely powerless, which is when the red-haired man revealed another hidden mission, but his spirit suddenly sensed the foul stench of death. And a hand clamped tightly over his face from behind. As the man's fist drove forward with clear and brutal killing intent, the blow sending him flying backward through the air, and outside the survivors stumbled weakly from the red portal, an official being called over to document the chaotic scene, but a bodyguard from the Golden Group quickly intervened, and nearby a girl quieted her friend hiding a terrible secret, agreeing to help, but her deep worry was clear on her face, as the portal remained open, hanging in the air, ominously silent. While in a car, a man got a report on the number of survivors, sighing in relief, believing his problem was finally over, admitting he's been using these portals to cull the weak. But a recent scandal has brought him some unwanted attention, and he's counting on his powerful allies to cover his tracks, his entire plan hinging on one simple thing: the kid must die, and the red-haired man was the perfect tool for the job, as a strange ethereal brush materialized above him. And a system warning flashed: player death is imminent. While two shadowy entities began to debate his ultimate fate, one insisting on saving him but the other flatly refusing, the two of them bickering over who gets to intervene in mortal affairs, and the first entity tried to back out of the situation entirely. Back in the courtyard, a strange energy began to shift, a brilliant blue aura surrounding the fallen, broken body, and the red-haired villain was stunned by this new feeling of control. He couldn't believe what he was seeing with his own eyes. As the headless body slowly rose to its feet, standing tall, crackling with an immense and untamed power, the villain feeling an overwhelming, unfathomable pressure from it, and a voice commanded the judge pen to act now, but the pen only mocked the entity that was controlling the body, as it swooped down towards the swirling blue flames, but the possessed body ignored it, completely facing its foe, the soul that was now inside revealing its true ancient face, and the pen reflected on the boy's strange and contradictory nature. How he fights like a demon but lives his life like a coward. His soul now temporarily sealed away from his body, how he mourned for strangers but not for his own fallen friends, and the pen questioned the boy's true identity and origin, but there was no time for that, so it got to work, placing mystical seals on his head, keeping him barely alive, his spirit then being ripped violently from his body, and he woke in a strange hall, greeted by the Underworld guide, who explained the system was blind to the attack during his trial. But he remembered it all: the man's only goal was to kill him. A familiar chilling dread washing over him once again, as the guide explained the assassins used a powerful scapegoat, and hiring a killer of that caliber requires immense resources, meaning whoever was behind this has far-reaching influence. But why would someone so powerful want him of all people dead? And he demanded to know if he could even go back to his world. So the guide gave him a simple instruction: reattach your head, and as he adjusted it, the guide began a rapid-fire debrief. His last death was an exception, but this time he was meant to be erased. A system warning flashing again: player death imminent, but his life signs were somehow still holding on, meaning someone was buying him precious time back in the real world. So he must complete the second trial now before it's too late, as they were in the void, a place where time itself moves much slower. But even if he returns, the killer will still be waiting for him. So this trial's purpose was clear: get strong enough to survive. And a barrage of impossible training quests appeared before him, demanding he master countless combat skills almost immediately, the guide telling him there's no way out and it was time to meet his coach. And as the guide vanished, the MC was left completely alone, when a sudden terrifying sense of deja vu hit him hard, and he was blasted back, staring up at the ceiling in disbelief, as a hidden passage began to grind open from the wall, a voice asking if he happened to remember them. Calling themselves his old acquaintances. A purple-haired woman's eyes flaring with a dangerous power, as two imposing women stepped out from the deep shadows.